So I made a take during UFC 312's co-main event of Tatiana Suarez versus Zhang Weili, where Tatiana Suarez, with her superior wrestling credentials, could not implement wrestling to beat or in any way be effective against Zhang Weili, therefore losing her chance at the World Championship and losing the fight. Now, there have been many responses to this take. Chael Sonnen and DC, Daniel Cormier himself, responded to this on ESPN MMA on their new show, and the recent episode of their new show called The Emotional Wrong Guy and the Bad Guy. By the end of the video, I'm going to give you guys a chance to guess which one is which once we go through the counter argument of Mr. Daniel Cormier here. Okay? Also, Bo Nickal's calling me out for this take. Also, I just spoke with Demetrious Johnson, the natty goat himself, about this take on Demetrious Johnson's podcast. And let's just say I've got some reinforcements for my claim. And I may have some reinforcements within the very show of The Emotional Wrong Guy and the Bad Guy on ESPN MMA. Check it out if you wish. I made this take. That's what we're going to go through. I said, I'm not trusting USA wrestling credentials anymore. I've been gaslit for years by the likes of Daniel Cormier and Chael Sonnen. Played them like a fucking violin, boys. Okay? Made sure to chuck both their names in there. You know how it goes. I'm a genius at this thing, you know? I've been gaslit for years by the likes of Daniel Cormier and Chael Sonnen about these monsters at wrestling. And I had, of course, hashtagged UFC 312. They all get shucked off by the first athletic person with zero background that they run into. Zhang beats Suarez. Now, I was speaking in extremes, but I have a point, okay? And my point is, when I see wrestling credentials on a resume, on a US fighter, I used to, back in the day, fear that. Oh my God, this guy's a national champ. He's going to run through the division. In the modern era of MMA, if I see national champ, if I see Hodge trophy this, if I see some like references to some kind of wrestling credentials that they have and they went through the whole system over there in America, I'm starting to notice that these guys aren't as much of a formidable threat in MMA anymore. Nowhere near what they used to be, okay? And they're starting to get figured out and shut down by people who don't have that background. That's my take. People who have a wrestling background should be able to implement wrestling in an MMA fight against someone who didn't have that. Daniel Cormier disagrees. Chael Sonnen agrees. We're going to let them say their point. Daniel Cormier reads out a very, very conveniently small amount of my tweet that I put out.
So, MMA Guru, who I really don't know who that is, but the way that Air said it to me today, it means that this person's somebody.
I don't know who MMA Guru is. Are we pretending again, Daniel? Is that what we're doing? Are we pretending again? I don't know who MMA Guru is. I mean, I'm not trying to be egotistical here to kick things off. Okay? But I said, are we pretending against DC? I know you watched this entire saga about John Jones with a hot box of Popeye's chicken on your lap in your dimly lit lounge after your wife went up to bed and the coast was clear. Maybe I'm wrong on this, okay? Maybe I am. But even still, and I like that DC had to chuck out that he had no idea who I was.
But the way that Air said it to me today, it means that this person's somebody.
It's good to know that I'm on the minds of UFC staff members, okay? I'm glad I'm a somebody to the UFC staff members that are putting out these ideas for what's going to be on the show. It's all good.
Because she goes, did you see what MMA Guru said? And I'm like, well, I have no idea who MMA Guru is.
That's it, Chael. Laugh along. I know Chael knows I'm a somebody, okay? That's the laugh. Oh, he's a somebody, all right. That's what that laugh translated to me, Chael, okay? Either way.
She goes, did you see what MMA Guru said? And I'm like, well, I have no idea who MMA Guru is, but okay. She said, MMA Guru said, not trusting Chael or DC. He called both of us out and he said, I'm not trusting USA Wrestling credentials anymore. I've been gaslit for years by the likes of Daniel Cormier and Chael Sonnen about these monsters that wrestle. To MMA Guru, what do you have to say?
I think DC's expecting Chael to be like, this MMA Guru guy's a fool and an idiot. How dare he come at our precious wrestling? Okay? And before I get into what they got, that has been a trend. I don't know if you guys are noticing the cope of the wrestlers, where they're starting to score rounds certain ways because someone got a takedown. I remember Cejudo being out there saying Covington could have been ahead in the Buckley fight. You know what I mean? You'll see some takes out there where they're really eager to score a round towards a guy who did no damage but happened to get a few takedowns and is a wrestler. So there's a bit of sensitivity, let's just say, because I think they're noticing it as well. And what does Chael have to say? Does he notice?
Well, Daniel, to a degree, I've been surprised myself. I mean, in all fairness, back from 1993.
Not the response DC was looking for. Just a few words from Chael Sonnen, and you can tell immediately, not the response DC was hoping for in defense of his precious wrestling in MMA, okay? Within frames, the expression has changed. All good, though.
Daniel, to a degree, I've been surprised myself. I mean, in all fairness, back from 1993 on, there's been major dominance in wrestling. Mark Kerr with a purple belt went into Abu Dhabi and ran through that division so easily, they banned Mark Kerr and banned other of our top guys from entering. We went without representation in Abu Dhabi for over 10 years, and they even changed the process to qualifiers and other things just to exclude a wrestler from walking in with no experience and dominating the field.
I can't speak to all that, but I know exactly where Chael's coming from here. There used to be a fear. If you heard, this guy, he wrestled for a long time through school. He's a national champ. He went to nationals. He won a state this. He won a state that in wrestling. It used to be this thing where, well, I'll see that guy in the top 5 in about 2 years. He's about to ragdoll this fucking karate instructor. You know what I mean? That's what it used to be in MMA. Oh, Jesus Christ. This poor fucking Kung Fu guy is going to get fucking chucked around by this fucking high school wrestler over here. There used to be an aura to them. But nowadays, I don't know if I can trust him to get through the Contender Series sometimes. You know, Dylan Butker's an example of this. He had these credentials in wrestling and this, and they aren't the greatest of credentials, don't get me wrong. It's not like he's won Olympic this and Olympic that. I'm not saying that. But I look at credentials and I'm seeing, well, this random Brazilian athlete has completely shut down his grappling game. He's been doing MMA for 4 years. You've been wrestling since you were a child. You can't ragdoll him to the ground. There's a problem here, okay? And it needs to be fixed. But Chael speaks on it. There used to be a different vibe around the idea of a wrestler with some kind of wrestling credential being a part of the competition. There used to be a fear of it. They used to be revered. You know what I mean? But now it doesn't feel that way.
In the UFC, right now, we do not have an NCAA wrestler in the heavyweight class. I did not just say an Olympian. I did not say a world medalist. I did not say an All-American. We do not have a heavyweight. When Stipe retired, that was the last of the heavyweights. Prior to that, there was a guy named Daniel Cormier. We do not have a single NCAA wrestler, not just in the top 10 or top 15. We do not have one under contract with the Ultimate Fighting Championship. So where have our wrestlers gone? David Taylor, there was some rumors that he was going to be coming out. David Taylor might be joining us for a couple of days on Tough, Daniel. But David Taylor took the job at Oklahoma State. Kyle Dake would be a great one to transfer over. Chance Marsteller, Jordan Burroughs.
I'm sure they would. All of these great names in wrestling that have achieved the great things and are the peak of the peak when it comes to wrestling, I'm sure they would do better. Don't get me wrong. I know Chael's going to have his take and you know, he's not going to absolutely tie every point that he's going to make over the next few minutes to exactly what my point was. I get it. But I'm not just talking about, oh, it's because they aren't here anymore in MMA. Okay? That's not my actual take. It's just I'm genuinely curious how when I see that someone's been doing something for a past decade, they can't implement that on someone who's been picking it up along the way. We keep seeing that. We keep on seeing that in the sport. Where this guy, oh, he wrestled through high school and college and he won this little tournament and he went to nationals and he did this and that and this. And I'm like, well, okay, what did this guy do in wrestling? Oh, he was an alcoholic kid on the street and he kind of liked to scrap. So at 21 years old, he got into MMA and he's kind of athletic. Oh, the wrestler can't take him down because the guy worked on wrist control and underhooks and backing himself up against a cage and using it to help him. That's all it took. It seems to be a more common occurrence. But I get that Chael was saying that wrestling itself has become such a big thing that the end goal for these wrestlers isn't, well, if I want to make any real money out of these skills that I'm learning, I'm going to take this to a fight. You know what I mean? Nowadays, it's, I can go further with this. I can compete in wrestling further. I can make a career out of this without having to look elsewhere in terms of where I want this career to go once I've learned these skills. You know, they would go to WWE or they would go to the UFC. Nowadays, they're staying put a little bit more. Either way.
But the truth is, whether they be great or not, they're not doing it. Anthony Kazar, who beat Gable Steveson, had 2 matches and he retired. So for MMA Guru to call that out, I will tell you, it has been slow for me to learn this, but the fact that a wrestler used to come and do it, we just don't live in that game anymore. It is such a complete style now. It is not something where you can get through college and then start picking up some boxing lessons on the side and you're good enough for the octagon.
True. And that's my point. And that's the point I'm making. It used to be. This isn't even a hot take to be discussed. I mean, I don't know. I think DC, if you want to get my honest opinion here, if I wanted to see through all of this, DC knows your boy, okay? He doesn't like me for whatever not anyone does. I get it, okay? No one does. Some people tolerate me. Not really anyone likes me, to be honest with you. So I'm used to it by now. But I think DC knows he doesn't like me. So this is his big slam dunk moment. A wrong take that I can defend against. But it really isn't a wrong take. They aren't formidable anymore, you know? We're seeing guys shut these people off. Rinya Nakamura, all of these wrestling credentials out of Japan. Have you seen a clip of Habib ominously talking about the wrestling structure in Japan and the way they're doing and the way they're competing on the Olympic stage? We just saw Rinya Nakamura just get shucked off by Muin Gafurov, who, don't get me wrong, has a bit of a background, but not the same level. I just feel like wrestling is sort of becoming a especially in the US, and, you know I just mentioned Japanese guy, but especially westernized wrestling, it seems to become not as much of a reliant force to carry you through to the top of the sport anymore. You just can't do that anymore. And even Bo Nickal not shooting on Paul Craig. I knew Chael Sonnen, by the way, was going to defend this take that I made, because I know Chael Sonnen has been making this same take, okay? I don't know if you've seen Bo Nickal confuse his Chael Sonnen, but it was just him absolutely flabbergasted at the idea that Bo Nickal, who has all of these we're talking elite of the elite level wrestler, doing it from a very, very young age. I don't know how many wrestling matches he had before the age of 10, but I remember Masvidal once said something about it on a podcast. But it's just him basically marveling at the fact that Bo Nickal did not use his most effective tool against Paul Craig. And we're going to get into some things Bo Nickal said, because some of my fans have been going at him on Twitter, and he's made some responses. But keep it up.
That was true at one point. But if Guru is just arguing that these hard, gritty, tough wrestlers isn't enough, he wins this argument. I thought it was. But he does win this argument. Wrestling is not enough, not by itself.
He's wrong, Chael. He's wrong.
Go on.
How am I wrong, DC? You're angry. He's wrong. No. He's wrong, Chael. He's wrong. I'm not. That shit ain't enough anymore. Okay? I can't trust that anymore. You know? I really can't. I can't trust it. I can't use it. I've been trying to use it for my predictions. I made a prediction on Dylan Budka. And I'm not saying he's elite of the elite. Don't get me wrong. But I've made predictions before where this wrestling guy who has a wrestling background is going in there against a guy, and I'm looking through his early life and some of the things that they've wrote about him on his article on ESPN as a newcomer to the UFC. Maybe a local news page has put something up about him, and within it they've listed his sort of martial arts history. And I'm seeing, okay, this guy's story is that he's a drunk. He needed something to motivate him after school. He didn't really have anything, and he's picked it up. And those guys are just becoming more and more able to completely nullify some guy who's been wrestling for a decade longer than them. And that's a problem that they need to think about moving forward when it comes to transitioning these wrestlers from the US and from other parts of the world as well. Not from the Caucasus, though. That's another point I've had. If you're not from the Caucasus, I don't really want to hear about it. Okay? That was another major part of this. If I see someone from the Caucasus and I say they've got a wrestling background and they're from that region, I think, oh shit, this guy's fucking... Well, someone's going to beat him, and I may hate on them, you know what I mean? Because I'm rooting for the boys over this side of the hemisphere, if you know what I'm saying. But either way, I'm looking at him and I'm like, God, this guy's probably going to make it to the top with the credentials that he has. I look on the other side, I look over the Atlantic, and I see some kind of prospect. High school this, national comp this, state competition this trophy, that trophy. Yeah, I just watched you fucking put your head against someone's leg on the contender series for 3 rounds and get out damaged and lose. You know? It's a problem. But DC says I'm wrong on this take. And we'll get into why DC thinks I'm wrong. Take it away, Daniel Cormier. Let me just capture his aggression once more as his face of absolute disappointment grows.
He wins this argument. I thought it was, but he does win this argument. Wrestling is not enough, not by itself.
He's wrong, Chael. He's wrong.
Go on.
Just because the best guys aren't coming anymore doesn't mean that wrestling doesn't work. Hell,
let him go.
We're still living in a world right now, Chael. We're living in a world right now where John Jones's background, wrestling. Sure, he was a junior college national champion, but he's a wrestler.
I like how he's listed that as someone who's very, very effectively utilized grappling in MMA. And actually is someone with a lower level of wrestling credentials. Which I completely understand he may have to take, well, if even John Jones can make it, but John Jones is a specific outlier in this situation. But I'm glad that for now, Daniel Cormier has proved me wrong. By the way, by listing someone who's been a part of the older generation and is still clinging on by a thread in the current generation, in my opinion. Which isn't, I'm talking about the newcomers, the new waves that we're seeing get shucked off before they even get to the belt. Jones has been around for the past 10 years, Daniel. You know what I mean? And he stayed on top. That's John Jones, okay? There's many reasons for that I can get into in many other videos that I've already made. But John Jones is from, I'm not talking about Jones right now. I'm talking about the modern prospects in MMA. Who's rising to the top? Who's getting through the regional scene fastest? Who's making it through the contender series in the most dominant fashion? Who's making it through the rankings? Who's making it through the unranked areas of the sport? You know? The wrestlers don't seem to be as formidable anymore. But I'm glad that he listed a USA example to begin with.
At 155, Islam Makhachev's background is combat sambo. And what else? Wrestling. Ilya Topuria. He's a wrestler. These guys are wrestlers. I
don't know if you can see my mouse on the screen. USA. Daniel. You do not disprove me by listing a bunch of Caucasus lot and saying, look how successful these guys have been. Next thing you know, he'll be listing Marab.
Marab the Wallace Weili.
So, my point is, Daniel, you're very quick to want to disagree with me here, DC. Okay? Can't trust USA wrestling credentials. And to prove me wrong, aside from John Jones, who's part of an older era where that was way more successful and was one of the guys that was proving wrestling credentials to be a factor on his own rise to the top of his division, is the only example you have. And then to prove me wrong further about not being able to trust USA wrestling credentials, who did you list?
Sure, he was a junior college national champion, but he's a wrestler.
Who did you list?
At 155, Islam Makhachev's background is combat sambo. And what else? Wrestling.
Russian. Dagestan. Not from the USA.
Ilya Topuria. He's a wrestler.
Georgian. You know? Georgian. Not from the USA. Trained in Spain. All good.
These guys are wrestlers. Marab the Wallace Weili. What does Marab do? Wrestling.
From Georgia. From the Caucasus. Again. They're doing something better than you when it comes to being able to implement grappling, period, in MMA. Grappling effectiveness, wrestling prowess, being able to dominate someone in the grappling department of a fight. They're doing something better than the US prospects. They just are. And before you want to tell me, well, they're best. They're sending their best. They aren't, first of all, because their best are winning gold medals, okay? But if you want to say, they're sending a better caliber, you're getting the bottom feeders of the US wrestling chain. The bottom feeders over there are still able to implement, some guy who's never really won anything over there that, doesn't really have too much of a background. They're still able to implement their game in MMA a lot better than some of these US prospects are. So disproving that I can't trust USA wrestling credentials as much as I used to be able to at all, night and day different. You do not disprove that by listing me a bunch of people from the Caucasus that are implementing their wrestling game effectively. I don't know how angry I've made you, but this is not a counterpoint. To my point, at least.
I've listed you 4 of the 7 champions now.
And 3 of them weren't from the USA. And the other guy was from a different era when he first rose to the top. And he's barely fought over the past however many years. And John Jones couldn't take down Dominic Reyes. It's all good, though. He did get him down, but he didn't keep him there. He didn't dominate him there. He didn't get him down nearly as much as he wanted to. Just saying.
That their entire background, hell, Bilal Muhammad, wrestler.
But Daniel, stay on this. Tell
Bilal.
me why Tatiana Suarez, who has
Let me move out of the way so Chael can fucking speak some sense into DC right here.
Bilal Muhammad, wrestler.
But Daniel, stay on this. Tell me why Tatiana Suarez, who has a world medal, the highest ranking wrestler, couldn't take down a girl that's never had a wrestling match.
And that's real. And you need to take that energy. And I know that Chael has been building this kind of resentment for there's different ways that you can cope with the idea of American wrestlers not dominating as they used to. And these two actually represent the complete different ends of the spectrum. You can cope like DC and cope about it and be angry about it, but cope about it and defend that actually there isn't a problem. Or you can be like Chael and have your biases towards that type of style and want that type of build up of a fighter, that type of foundation to succeed in combat more than others because you also went through those same foundations. And you can be angry that it no longer is and want it to improve and want to see more of it and want it to be better suited for MMA. That's what Chael represents. But I think DC is somewhat representing you attacked my wrestling. It's the best. There is no problem with it. So Chael's asking, rightfully so, why did Tatiana Suarez, who's wrestled so many times, who I think was on her way to the Olympics where she was kind of favored as a real monster in the scene. Why did Tatiana Suarez not effectively out-grapple or wrestle against just an athlete in Zhang Weili who hasn't wrestled in her past? It's because MMA is moving on beyond wrestling being a formidable threat that can carry you to the top. It's not good enough anymore. And that's my take. But we'll see what DC responds to that take from Chael about Tatiana Suarez and Zhang Weili.
Weili's never even had a match.
So the Hickman brothers out in Muay Thai Bang Tao, those guys are really good coaches. And they taught Weili how to wrestle offensively. That's the key, Chael. I had a crazy argument with Michael Bisping about this the other day.
I'll go through that argument as well, by the way. They taught Zhang Weili how to offensively wrestle. That's why Tatiana Suarez wasn't out wrestling her. As if, DC, all of these US schools and wrestling programs just didn't fucking think about that. Just happened to slip their minds to tell Tatiana Suarez how to wrestle offensively. The reason she couldn't get takedowns on Zhang Weili is because 2 guys in Thailand at a Muay Thai gym have taught Zhang Weili effective grappling for MMA in a few years better than Tatiana Suarez's life of wrestling has taught her. You have perfectly illustrated, DC, accidentally, my exact point on this topic. It's all good, though.
I believe that if you want to wrestle effectively in the octagon, and I did this at AK, you got to learn to actually wrestle. Chael, you know what I would do with those guys when I was coaching the wrestling there? We would do top and bottom. I'd have Khabib riding. I'd make Khabib get on top of somebody in the referee's position. Because if you can learn to wrestle and you can learn to ride and you can learn to take down people offensively, you learn to take them down defensively. You learn all those little details in the middle that you don't.
You can beat someone who's had a lifetime of doing it. If you just learn those few things, Few things that we can pick up on and teach you in an MMA gym. If you just learn these few things, you can shut down a Tatiana Suarez who is headed for the Olympics. Is that how things should be, DC? Or is there not a glaring problem to you there?
I don't get when you go, I'm starting MMA, I want to make sure I know how to defend takedowns. It doesn't work like that. You got to know how to do it all. Zhang Weili does. Zhang Weili's learning wrestling, not just mixed martial arts wrestling. So, yes.
And she's learning it in Thailand at Tiger Muay Thai and is being able to implement it more effectively than someone who has had it ingrained into them since they were a child in the US wrestling credential system. All good.
Does feel like it's not as deep with wrestlers because at a time, 205 had myself, Phil Davis, Ryan Bader, Rashad Evans, John Jones, Glover Teixeira. We had like so many wrestlers, you and Mark Munoz, Weidman, just so many wrestlers around the top at those heavier weight classes that now that there aren't as many, it seems like the guys aren't there. They're just not at the heavier weights anymore because those guys are making more money in wrestling, so they're sticking around a little longer. Some are playing football like Stephen Neal did. So there are just like these great wrestlers that aren't coming to fighting as frequently as they used to. But I think MMA Guru's wrong. Sure, Tatiana struggled. But again, she wasn't. There were some simple things that she could have done to change what was happening.
I've got a lot to break down because I don't want to feel like, because he made a good point there, and I don't want to feel like I don't want it to feel like I'm skipping over and not breaking down, because he did make a point. There were a lot more around, and I mentioned this at the start of the video. They are now sticking around in the wrestling world a little longer. More than as soon as they get out of the system and the program, they start looking around, where can I make money? I'll be a cage fighter. This fucking karate instructor that teaches women and children on a fucking Saturday evening thinks he can fucking fight. I'll chuck him around real quick. You know what I mean? But it's not the same. There are wrestlers that are coming over. There are a lot of people that are implementing that. And a lot of people going through the wrestling system in the USA that are going over to the UFC. Sure, the Olympians aren't. You know, sure, the guys that are like breaking records in wrestling and winning the highest of the highs aren't really making the transition anymore. The guys you listed before, you listed John Jones as an example. He's a junior champ, I think. I can't remember the exact name of his credential. I think he was a junior national. Like, he didn't reach the highest of the heights. So it's not the same example. It's not like back in the day you had so many gold medalists in the sport. They weren't. Even back then there wasn't just gold medalist after gold medalist in the heavier divisions. There were some that I can't even fucking think of. But still, they weren't around. You had some lower level guys. So the lower level guys should still be able to implement the same thing. But they can't. They just can't do it. And I'm watching it over and over again throughout different divisions. Lower divisions especially nowadays. You know? Fact is, even when it comes to the Caucasus fighters, how is O'Malley stuffing Aljamain Sterling's fight? Well, not the Caucasus. How did O'Malley stuff takedowns against Merab in the second and the fourth? You know what I mean? Or the first and the third, sorry. How did Aljo get his takedown stuffed by O'Malley? You know? It's just easier to deal with. It really is, and it needs to adjust. You know? These guys don't fear American wrestlers like they do when a Chimaev shows up on the other side of the octagon from them. When a Merab shows up on the other side of the octagon. Umar Nurmagomedov, Islam Makhachev, all of these guys from other parts of the world. They don't fear your US credentials like they do these guys. Even if the US guys have this many more trophies and won this many more tournaments and have wrestled this many more matches and have been doing it this many more years. Often not the case with how long they've been doing it, but still, they will fear the other guys more because their style of grappling is more better implemented for an MMA fight. Simple as that.
She kept shooting double legs. Simple struggle.
Hold on.
But again, she wasn't. There were some simple things that she could have done to change what was happening.
About Tatiana Suarez, let's back to this point. That years of wrestling didn't teach her. There were just simple things she could have done that would have changed the way that fight went. That decades of wrestling has not taught her, DC. So decades of her own credentials aren't helping her, but you go into backstage and you tell her a few things to tweak within a minute-long session, she's going to change things right up.
She kept shooting double legs. You cannot shoot double legs anymore.
Why? Because I'm right. Because I'm correct, DC, man. Put your emotions to the side, brother. I've actually been good to DC throughout his career. I know I made a whole 30-minute documentary about him being fat. I get it. I get it, guys. I've made some videos, okay? But I've also made a ton of videos supporting DC and backing him up about the whole Jones drama and the way they were treating him during the build-up of Jones versus Miocic. I've actually had a ton of videos giving DC props and actually defending him in so many moments. But I guess I'm the wrong messenger to be correct. This is the problem. I'm the wrong messenger to be correct. And it's an ongoing theme. I feel like if an actual high-level wrestler like Jordan Burroughs would have a nuanced take like mine, that that US wrestling in general and the systems that they have in place aren't as effective anymore in MMA as they used to be, and instead other regions of the world have better systems where their wrestlers and grapplers can implement into MMA a lot better, I think DC would sit there and agree with him. But I am to be disagreed with because I am a cunt, and I get that, but I'm also correct. Okay, that two things can be right at the same time, guys. I'm a cunt, but god damn it, I'm right when I'm right, okay?
You got to shoot double legs to switch off to a single leg if you want to take people down. Joe, everybody knows how to defend a double now. It's what you learn the first day you walk into an MMA gym.
Everyone knows how to defend a double leg now. You learn it the first day you step into an MMA gym. So quickly, a guy can pick up a way to deal with one of your main weapons. Problem, DC! It needs to be fixed, okay? If your style will continue in MMA, it must be fixed. And you just said why yourself.
You got to mix things up, and she didn't really mix things up, and that's why Weili found so much success defending those takedowns. All right, wrestling. I don't want to get too much into this.
Because he's wrong.
Because now, if this guy comes over, Chael, we will have a heavyweight wrestler.
And they start listing Gable Stevenson. And yes, I do think he would be a factor at heavyweight. But listen, anyone who ain't got a fucking morbidly obese BMI as I burp up breakfast will be a threat in the heavyweight division. It's not the fucking best example to use. Okay? But either way, you know, Gable Stevenson, legendary guy, probably won't go to the UFC or MMA in general. He's probably going to do a lot of other things instead. But there you go. Gable Stevenson is an example of the peak that can maybe disprove something if he ends up going for a run in the UFC. But I have other takes to make, okay? Shout out to Chael. Chael's logical, okay? Chael's, you know, he's doing us proud, okay, on the front lines. What other takes do I have? So this was my overall tweet that I put out. Bo Nickal responded. That boy MMA guru, come on my podcast, follows me, by the way. Thank you, Bo. I appreciate that, brother. That boy MMA guru. Am I in the way? Of course I am. Right, there you go. That boy MMA guru, come on my podcast and let me educate you on American wrestling, my brother. Again, I will not be disproved on this, okay? First of all, get a ranked win first, little bro. I'm not, we don't collab with losers. You know what I'm saying? I'm joking. But still, you won't defeat me on this point. And if I tell you this right now, Bo Nickal, I'm not coming on your podcast. Here's my absolute official deal to Bo Nickal. I ain't coming on your podcast, okay? So you can disprove me. How about this? Disprove me over the next few years, where we, of course, because you are correct, watch you run through the top of the middleweight division and ragdolled a lot of them. Disprove me, okay? By doing that. I've had a lot of people on Twitter going after Bo Nickal for this. Shut up, Bo. Nobody wants to come on your shitty pod. He's rolling. I like Bo Nickal. He's a cool dude. Some say bit too big for his boots in moments, but he's not a morally flawed guy. Okay, you have to adjust your hatred. There's annoyance and there's hatred, guys. You have to adjust your emotions to people based on who they actually are. He may have said a few things that were annoying. I don't think he's that bad. Second reason I'm not coming on the podcast. I ain't going nowhere Ariel Helwani's already been. Okay? Strike one. Either way. You get stopped by Chris Curtis. Interesting thought. I'll take that into consideration. Okay. Stop asking the UFC to give you super can opponents so we can actually see the wrestling. He's going back and forth with a few people. This is one. Ilonov, follower of my channel. Okay. Glazes all Australian fighters, but also Shavkat. Where do you lie about JDM? That's a confusing one. Either way. You made Paul Craig look like a decent striker and struggled to take down Pickett before you need him in the balls. That is true. I finished Pickett in round 1 easily and 30-27 Craig without taking damage. Try again. Both can be correct. Both can be correct. Okay? You didn't just Chimaev Jamie Pickett out there. That's not what happened. Okay? And then we have, dude, I can't tell if you're smart or just don't like me, which is... He's showing that Bo Nickal had to knee Jamie Pickett in the groin. I can't even play this because I'll probably get copyrighted it. But he did knee him in the balls to get him down. But this is all good, whatever. He's been going back and forth with some others. So far, you're in the UFC or MMA wrestling hasn't been very impressive and doesn't match your actual high-level wrestling credentials, which kind of proves his point. I haven't even had to wrestle anyone. Too easy. This also got responded to, by the way, with a few-second clip of Cody Brandage chucking him over in round 2. So I'm just saying, I like Bo Nickal. I think he's a cool dude. Back up, little bro. I'm right. Okay? And I know I'm right on this. Okay? And you, an elite. The fact that you, the elite of the elite, you got me doing Joe Rogan impressions. People forget, man. He won a Hodge fucking trophy. Either way. The elite of the elite. You're the one who's got to prove me wrong. That tells me I'm right. Okay? The fact that I'm making a general take about all credentials when it comes from the US, when it comes to wrestling. Only you, one of the best, that they've got right now. The best candidate they've got. Only you can prove me wrong about all of them. And even then, it's looking a bit risky on whether or not you're going to be able to. So that's my deal to Bo. I ain't debating you about this on no podcast. Maybe I will. Who knows? I'll feel different tomorrow. Maybe. Who knows? Prove me wrong by ragdolling these middleweights. Don't go out there against Paul Craig because, Chael, I'm on your team about this. When I know someone's this and I hear Bo Nickal's got this in his arsenal and that, when it comes to grappling and wrestling in general, I want to see it. So you start showing us that in MMA, okay? That's how you're going to prove me wrong about this topic. Shout out to Bo Nickal, though. We're looking forward to whatever's next. Is it Paulo Costa? ? How do I know? Either way. Daniel Cormier's heated about it. I spoke to Demetrious Johnson about this. I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but I was on Demetrious Johnson's show. He invited me on his show recently, the natty goat of the sport. He just got done inviting me on his show. And I actually brought this up to him. Okay? It kind of got to the point where if you're not from the Caucasus, I don't want to hear about your wrestling credentials. It really did.
Well,
it kind of has.
I can answer that question for you. Here's the reason why you're seeing a lot of, I think back in the day when mixed martial arts was such in its infancy stage, you had guys like Matt Hughes, Tito Ortiz, John Jones, Daniel Cormier, guys who came up from wrestling. Wrestling was such a dominant sport that when you would fight people still, their traditional stuff like, oh, I'm a kickboxer, or I'm a boxer, or I come from a striking background.
I'm a karate guy.
I'm a karate guy.
It was
right?
very different, yeah.
Very different, where now you're seeing a lot of people come from a background where they're well-rounded, where it's like, you look at Weili versus Tatiana Suarez. Yeah, she's a better, Suarez has a better wrestling credentials, but you look at the pure athleticism over Weili, when she had that when Tatiana Suarez had that takedown at the very end, the later rounds, she was just keeping her balance, keeping a good posture, and then she was keeping her balance, and she couldn't finish it. Or you look at a guy like Henry Cejudo, Triple C, Olympic gold medalist, flyweight champion, bantamweight champion. When he fights Merab, I didn't think Merab was going to out-wrestle him, but it's mixed martial arts. They're able to put it together where the guys like, Georgian wrestling, Dagestan wrestling, they've been doing it since they're 5-6 years old when I started wrestling in high school. Now,
that being said, the Cejudo point is very good, isn't it? Olympian. Olympian. It shows you that just on wrestling credential alone does not dictate the grappling success of your MMA fight. It used to. It really did. Now and then a guy would get caught in a guillotine and not know what a triangle was. We get it. But it used to have this phase where you were like, oh, he's going to bulldoze this fucking jiu-jitsu bitch. But now it's different. We're seeing Cejudo not implement his game plan as strong. You know?
You do have the guys like Bo Nickal who are left, but they're so one-dimensional, and Bo Nickal's still trying to learn how to fight. He can't get himself to the position where he can out-wrestle people as long as they keep that void from each other, right?
And by the way, you're going to see this as all DJ took a shot at Bo Nickal here. He's had Bo Nickal on the show. I think he went on Bo Nickal's show or had Bo Nickal on his show. And Bo Nickal admitted this. He had this same take said to him by DJ and he admitted to it. But you know what I mean? It really is about the messenger. And I'll make a fucking closing statement that really sums it all up. I guess it's just the messenger.
And that's why I think now, in 2024, 2025, you see a guy, oh, he's a 2-time state divisional champion, NCAA, da-da-da-da. Look at Michael Chandler. I mean, he was a decent wrestler, but not blowing people out, but he doesn't wrestle anymore. And I think it's just you're seeing a lot more people be athletic and have a stronger background where you're not seeing that same caliber of wrestling when it was back in the early days of the UFC. And that's why I think what you're stating, like, I don't give a fuck what your wrestling pedigree is, unless you're coming from, Dagestan or Georgia or wherever, it don't fucking matter. And that's some truth to that. That's truth because
there is.
It's mixed martial arts wrestling. It's not wrestling.
You heard the GOAT! Check out Mighty Mouse on YouTube. Mighty is the name of the channel. He recently hit 1 million subscribers as well. He's taken off as an MMA fighter. And I want to say that maybe one of the reasons why Demetrious Johnson is taken off in this way online, because remember, Demetrious Johnson was painted out to be this unmarketable guy. And when you look at DJ's numbers compared to ESPN MMA's, with DC and Chael Sonnen on there, I'm not chucking Chael Sonnen under the bus with it, but it's mainly to counterpoint what DC is reacting to this like. Maybe one of the reasons is because DJ is open to the truth, no matter the fucking mouth that it comes from, to be honest with you. Okay? A point is a point. A correct point is a correct point. But there's a lot of fighters, and maybe DC is one of them, that will shun your opinion, right or wrong, because you aren't one of them. You aren't a fighter. And that's maybe why my channel took off in the first place, is because finally there was a guy who wasn't in this fighter community and brotherhood where they could say whatever they want and no one could critique them because I'm a fighter, I know more than you. You know? It's not about that anymore. But I guess DC might be stuck in his own ways. And also on this podcast, I guess I'll give you a reason to go over there and watch it yourself. We then immediately get into talking about why Dagestanis and people from the Caucasus and those types of guys instead have better success implementing their wrestling and MMA compared to US guys. Little reason for you to go over there after I just used some of the footage. What else I got? This was an argument DC and Bisping just had before DC came out and had this take.
Cage wrestling in a mixed martial arts fight against the fence.
And that's what I was going to say.
Nothing like actual wrestling on.
That's what I mean by a small part of wrestling.
It doesn't exist. Like, Callum is a way better wrestler than me. I will pick him up and slam him on his ass.
Here's the problem.
And I've done it. And he's like, yeah, but that's that bullshit in a cage. But real wrestlers suck balls.
But here's the problem.
You bring any of those guys in a cage, unless they learn how to do it in a cage, I will fucking head kick their head off. They're shit. They suck. And that's why most of them can't do shit.
He's a full pro wrestler.
Look, all you got to do. No, here's the thing. All you got to do.
Wrestlers suck.
This is where people struggle with that. Don't wrestle double legs. All these guys know how to defend double legs.
It's the great take. You just don't use double legs. They just don't work anymore. That's the cope. And listen, people in the comments are saying stuff like DC can see easy work, but is nice enough to let Bisping keep running his mouth. And, DC would absolutely manhandle Bisping. Dude was ragdolling heavyweights in his prime, and they got gifs of him chucking over Gustafsson. That wasn't the argument, though. This is the problem. That wasn't the argument. You don't just go up the pecking order of who was a better fighter, so therefore their opinion's correct. It's all good, though. I guess I can end it there. I haven't really got much more to say on this topic. I think they're wrong. I think they're absolutely wrong. on this. Not Chael. Chael seems to have, agreed with my take in some way because they're annoyed at the reality in different directions. Chael Sonnen is annoyed by what he is seeing and he wants to improve upon it. He wants someone to change it. He wants it to become great again. You know what I mean? I don't want to make a political message out of this, but still, Chael is under that mindset. It's not working out anymore. I hate this. Why isn't Bo Nickal ragdolling Paul Craig anymore? Why isn't Bo Nickal going out there and fucking blitz him through Cody Brandage in about 2 minutes like a Chimaev would? Why? And he wants to know how to fix that. And he's frustrated with that reality. DC is coping about the reality. And I'll have one closing statement here about this whole situation. Just because I don't know how to close this statement. Just because I'm a fat, ugly cunt retard on YouTube doesn't mean I'm wrong. You know what I mean? Maybe I'll end it on that statement. Okay? There you go. I can be correct sometimes, you guys. Don't have to wait until I make a hot take just to fucking get a chance to what? I guess your plan was to shame me on ESPN. Better luck next time, guys. Welcome to the YouTube algorithm, though. See ya. Goodbye.